What up friends, Liron here, and in this video we're gonna paint Zvika. What up friends, thank you for joining me in another video. About 2 weeks ago or so I was in an open stage night at a place I frequent on a weekly basis. It's just a really nice place of getting together, like a community, like a house, and less of a bar. But sometimes they do have open mic or open stage nights. And I was sitting there and looking at the performances of different people, and one of them, just the scene captivated me, and hopefully I will put an image of what that looks like, or what that looked like at the moment. And I thought to myself, first off, this is a great place to do like live painting of people, or even sketching of people that are on stage, because especially with guitar they don't move a lot, so you can get a really good still image of someone playing the guitar or something like this. And so I just had to capture it. I took a picture, and based on that we're gonna paint this painting of this guy today. So I really hope you will enjoy this process. I'm really pleased with the way it turned out. Initially I wasn't sure exactly if I'm pleased with the result, but then after looking at it a bit, I think I did quite a few smart things in terms of the grays, especially the pants area. Okay, but you're gonna see this right now, and I'm gonna crank into the painting process. Okay, and even I believe some of the drawing process. So let's change the angle and get started on that.
Okay, so I'm starting with the drawing, and this time I wanted to show you the whole process of the drawing, because I usually don't get to see this. So what I did was tons of measurements, and now I'm just kind of trying to figure out where everything goes. And as you can see in the reference, I'm near the area of the head. I've got the proportions of the body set up by these little marks, and so this will help me to make sure I'm not going over the overall size that I allocated for the head and for the body and everything. It's a very interesting painting, I think. I did quite a lot of things nicely, and quite a lot of things that I would definitely want to improve for the next time. What you're watching now is sped up, so that's double speed. Most of this video is going to be double speed. The only part that's going to be real time completely is the first wash. I wanted you to see the first wash real time because it really basically it represents what it looks like to work on that. And there's a lot of pressure stemming from the initial wash when you have to kind of hurry things up a little and make sure that it stays somewhat even. And I think for a first wash here I went a little too detailed and maybe a little too focused on things that don't matter as much. So this is something I'm trying to simplify right now, and that is to not go too overboard with things that aren't a necessity in the initial wash. Okay, I posted a few days ago on Instagram a painting that really got good feedback. It was a commission work I did, and I'm highly pleased with how it turned out. And with that, I already started applying some of the principles of trying to simplify the first wash while still keeping it quite detailed. Okay, and I think it's like pulling from opposite directions, definitely, and you kind of want to find your own balance with this. Okay, so it's just a process. Now that I look at this, the drawing process, it reminds me that usually I speed up the drawing processes much more significantly, so like 5 times faster or even 10 times faster. But with this one, you know what, I decided to show you a little more slowed down version of that, in case you want to see more of this. I'll probably put timestamps in the description box, so if you want to skip this part and just go straight to the part of the painting or something like this, then you're able to do so. Now I'm kind of measuring things around, and you see this. I've been going through a very interesting process, I think, with my paintings, and that is I started paying much more attention to the composition. And I'm actually planning out a video for you that will talk just about that, about the composition aspect, because I find it to be so challenging, and it's something that took me quite some time to get to a level where I feel at least a little comfortable with it. And I also got to the point where I have a really cool method for doing this that I think works out really well, especially on location, which is one of my favorite things to do, to work on location. And so just another fun thing that I want to share with you, and I've got quite a few videos in store, and so good things to look forward to. So in any case, now almost done with the guitar. The challenging thing here is actually the straight lines can be a bit of a challenge sometimes, but not that bad. So I'm just trying to keep it looking good. The whole mic setup is going to be in front of him, so what I'll try and do is get it to really pop, and the way to do that is usually by contrast and by making the value a little stronger. So I'll definitely put an emphasis on that. So here we get the line of the mic, and there's like the plastic or metal part, and then we have the cable going down, and these two are essential just to convey what this looks like. So basically, just to tell you a bit more about this scene, I think I told you a bit in the intro. So I was in this place called Pele. Pele means wonder in Hebrew, and it's just a really fun place. There's like performances, singing circles, and live things, and it's just a really fun place. There's actually a lot of people not from Israel there from time to time, English speakers mainly. And so it's just a very fun place. It has a very unique, I think, atmosphere. It's more like a home or a house than a club or something like this. So I really enjoy it. And I thought it would be a really cool idea to... Well, I was sitting there in the open mic night, and I saw this guy called Zvika, and he played the guitar. And I know him. He's always there when I'm there. And so I just thought it would be a really cool idea to paint this, because the way the light turned out, and I talk about this, I think, or I'll talk about it in the conclusion, it was just so perfect. It's too perfect of a light to pass on the chance to paint it. And I think the more you dive deep into painting, you start to get a sense of what kind of scenes will work and what kind of scenes may not work as well for watercolor, generally for the look that you're trying to achieve. By the way, I'm sorry that I'm going a little outside of the area that you can see. I will fix the angle later on. And so you just start to develop a sense of what works and what doesn't, and even more so what works for you. And so this, I just saw it immediately, and I see the world in watercolor these days. I mentioned this a few times before. Everywhere I go, I try to guess, like to assess the values and what composition could work. I just see paintings everywhere, and I think it's actually a part of the process of really diving deep into a medium, because I can definitely say I dove deep into watercolor. And as much as I love pen sketching, this is one medium that like I'm really enjoying tackling, if only because it keeps punching you in the face even when you think you got it. And so it was really important for me to work on my skills in that specific area. It's a little hard to explain, but I'm really attracted to this medium, and the more I do it, the more I understand how much more I'm attracted to it. So anyway, yeah, this is almost done now. Just a few details there for the background and the neck of the guitar. There's this curtain behind him that I wanted to add. It was just a perfect scene. Like everything was set up so perfectly. The ceiling, just everything. You know, the curtain behind it. It just looked really good, and I knew I had to capture it. I actually went there on Friday. I think maybe a week later or 2 weeks later, and there was another beautiful scene, like chiaroscuro. You know, like the light and the. Everything is super dark, but there's a bit of highlights, and I had to take a picture of that as well, because it was, again, such a perfect scene. So maybe I will make another painting. I'm not sure if I'll make a video out of it, but definitely you're gonna see it on Instagram and things like this. So definitely check that out if you want to see more of my work. There's a lot of works that I do, and then it just takes time for me to post the video. So yesterday's painting that got a lot of really good reception, I guess. It's only gonna be published as a video in maybe 2 or 3 weeks. So if you want to see things more in advance, you can definitely check it out. And also the process in pictures, I think it's really fun. So yeah, so now the drawing is almost done. I didn't really indicate a lot of shadows here, just for the maybe jeans and things like this, which actually makes this painting a little different from the rest of my work, or maybe rather this drawing, because I didn't indicate as much of the shadows. Yeah, so sorry, lost my track of thought for a moment, but in any case, yeah, I focused more on the actual objects in this one, I guess, and not really about the light and shadow. So now I'm starting to mix some colors here. I'm using 3 colors once again, primaries. So cadmium, this is the Zvika palette, and so I'm using mainly cadmium red light, then Cobalt Azure for the blue, and Chromium yellow hue deep. Okay, so these are the 3 colors, and you can see I'm working from the face and outwards, and I'm being quite careful. And this is something I want to work on. So I don't really think you need to be this careful on the first wash. You can have some things mix and blend a little more. I just think that there's a trade-off for everything. So you give up some maybe accuracy and control, but what you get in return is the quality of the wash. It's just better, because I had a few parts, as you'll soon see, that dried on me a little bit, and I think this is enough of a reason to focus more on evenness and maybe working a little quicker. One more thing that I would definitely change, and I'm surprised to see I didn't even remember that, is that I am using my small silver black velvet brush instead of my large one, and I think for this size probably the large one would do. I know some people would just prefer a lot of control, and they choose smaller brushes. I'm not like that. I actually love to use as large of a brush as I can, because it's just quicker and it's simpler, and I would trade off some control for speed, let's say. So a larger brush that just covers larger spaces, I will just have to work a little harder to be accurate, but I would get in return just the speed of execution, let's say. And you can really feel this. It's a bit of a slow work, and so I'm leaving this huge highlight in the middle, but I could probably just cover up the whole face and then do wet and wet. This is something I'm still working on. This is why this one in particular feels a little, this whole painting feels a little, how shall I say it? Some parts of it feel a bit like illustration, and this is really different from what I've been doing in the last few days. You'll see it's just a completely different feeling. And so yeah, now you see the hair on the left. I'm aware that it's gonna dry, but like it just takes time to finish with the face, because I'm being so darn accurate, and I could just plop the paint in there, lift maybe from the nose and the forehead. There is no need to go through such hassle to just to get some of the details there. So this is something I definitely take as a lesson for the following work, and I do think I improved since. So that's nice. I got the fortune to look at some of my older paintings a few days ago, and I say fortune because some of them were buried really deep. And so, sorry about that, a bit of noise, I moved the mic. And so I was fortunate to find some old paintings and that I never really I've never seen since I made them. And probably it will be a really cool idea to share them with you. But in any case, I just really saw the subtleties of how much I improved since, and this is crazy. I think most of them are about a year ago. I made them a year ago, and so I'm into watercolor for 2 years now, maybe a little over 2 years, and this was a year ago and it's already huge. So now I'm struggling with the wash that dried a bit, and so I'm adding a bit more paint just to equalize it with what I'm seeing on top of that. So that's the downside. I think a better tactic here would be to just put one big, as I mentioned, pink spot on the face, lift a bit, and then connect it to the hair immediately, and not go through all of these details so painstakingly. By the way, let me know what you think of these kinds of processes, because usually they feel much faster, and with this one I feel like it's a bit slower moving, and I guess you can also feel it in my voice. So let me know if this is too long of a video for you, and if you prefer me to run, let's say, all of the painting process in double speed, because this is what I usually do. But I did want you to see the initial wash in real time. Now, another thing I notice here, and I get a lot of, I used to get some fire for that, is how I use a very dark wash to begin with. And this is something that, once again, I'm working on. I think I'm much more balanced now, because what happens is there are a few implications for that. First off, you may lose some lighter areas that you don't want to. You may lose some lighter areas you don't want to lose. If you're coming in way too dark from the get, you may miss out on some, not highlights, because highlights you're aware of. By the way, I'm just spritzing some water. Highlights you're aware of, but if you want to keep some areas lighter and you come in with a dark wash, then it could be a little too much. So you lose some of the transparency and some of the watercolor characteristics, I guess. But another, I think, even larger issue here is just the evenness. Is that even a word? Like how even the wash is, because it's just dry. You see, it's not wet enough. And the paint should be much wetter. Now, I don't care, because I know the hair is going to be much darker, and so it'll solve that issue. But on the other hand, why not get it to flow and look cool and look like watercolor immediately? So looking back at this one, I have so much criticism for myself, especially with the things I mentioned so far, but also like with the color selection and things like this. But when I see the final result, I'm actually pretty proud. So yeah, I'm looking at this well, and I'm like, put more water in there, make it flow more. And when that happens, I know that maybe my mindset shifted from the time of making this painting. It happens to me quite often. Also, when I look at other people's work, I get sometimes this sixth spidey sense that tells me it's not, their wash isn't wet enough. You can tell when you build enough, I think, competence. You can tell just by looking at someone else working what they should correct. It makes a lot of sense, because basically we learn by imitation in many cases. And when you see someone doing something, you immediately relate and maybe think about how you would do it and how it would feel like to do it in the same situation that they're doing it. And so when I see someone working, painting, I immediately can tell all of the mistakes, quote unquote mistakes they make. If they're maybe less experienced than me. If they're more experienced than me, that's something else, and I'm sure I miss a hell of a lot of things there. But yeah. So anyway, this sweater has a really cool green tint to it. Cool, not in the sense of cool or warm, but literally like cool. I really like this color. So yeah, I'm now moving on to the guitar. I cannot explain why I decided to do it that way. Because I should have probably finished with the sweater. But anyway, it's so funny. I didn't even remember I made all of these mistakes. But this really goes to show you, you'll see when I'm done with this, how it still kind of looks good. So it wasn't really that terrible. Now, one thing I think wasn't so good is this wash is really beautiful. It's really vibrant. There's the orange and red. But then what I did was I glazed over it, I think, one more time. Or maybe even twice, dare I say. And that was a little too much. I probably shouldn't have done that. I should have probably kept it like happy and bright and light as it is now. Because it's very bright, I think. Especially the right side where I put a lot of red in it. But in any case. So I went through the hand. The hand at least merged nicely with the guitar. and then there's like the shadows that are being cast by the hand. This is one shadow that I did want to indicate and put in there. And now I'm leaving this highlight inside the guitar. I'm unclear as to why I'm doing this. A lot of this is really a mystery for me. I think the part that will redeem this is the pants. You'll soon see. Just all the grays there are beautiful. So now we're kind of halfway through the painting process. I think we're about in the middle. And yeah, look at these beautiful oranges. I think it's really important to vary things up. Another thing that's really interesting, I think, was that I tried to merge my method of the way I approach painting people that comes very natural to me, I guess, and portraits. I try to learn from that and use that in my landscape paintings or cityscape paintings or urban sketches, whatever you want to call them. So I already apply this this whole idea of using colors freely and worrying about matching the values. I'm already applying it to landscape and cityscape paintings, and I really love the results so far. It's a really fun learning process, and this is something I want to talk about in a future podcast, I guess, episode, of how you can borrow your information, your maybe knack for one field, borrow that and the thing that makes you be successful there, into another area where you may be weaker, I guess. So that's something really cool, and the results are showing. When I do the video on composition, you'll see I'll show you a lot of paintings I did on location. So now I'm going back to the other side of the sweater. I just did this. He has a collared shirt, like a dress shirt, that has a bit of a blue color to it. And now I'm going back to the sweater, kind of a negative painting around that wire. Don't know if it was a must, but in any case, that's what I did there. So yeah. So this wash is gonna take some time, and then I'm gonna run it at double speed for the rest of the painting. So don't worry about that if it's a bit slow. Now there was a bit of a highlight there, I think. So I skipped this area and just go to the green part to the right. One thing I think I could have done a little better is the neck of the guitar. Not necessarily the sketch, but the way I painted it. I could have done it using a different color, I guess. You'll see soon that I add a bit of kind of a blue, brown, black to it, and I don't know, I don't think that's the best choice here. I don't know why, but sometimes... Okay, so I talk a lot about using a limited palette and, you know, how that makes life easier, and the color harmony just is preserved much better. And that's all fine and dandy, but for some reason, sometimes it doesn't work. So here, for example, all of these greens and oranges, I feel like it's too much. You know, maybe I should have preserved some blues and yellows in the sweater, or maybe some reds and oranges in the guitar. Preserving the purity of some colors, because what you get now is, I think, a bit overmixed. I don't know if I want to use that term specifically, but it does feel that way. It's like I mix too much, and then it loses some of its vibrancy and happiness and things like this. So I don't know. But in any case, the pants are gray, and I'm using so many colors to put that gray, and I think this is one of the redeeming parts of this painting, as I mentioned. So I started with blue, then I added a bit of red to it, so we get a reddish kind of brown, because it has some yellow in it too, blurring some of the edges. I actually framed this one, and it turned out really nicely. And let's see what happens next. It's like, what color will I add next? My instinct tells me, yep, to add more blue. This is what, like, I can really see what I'm gonna do, like, guess what I'm gonna do. So it's a little darker, so I added just a bit of water, and now I'm moving onward. So now you can see it's a bit cooler, ever so slightly bluer. Okay, it's still quite gray, but now I'm adding a bit more blue, and this is really my favorite part. I have a bit of a low energy today, so you'll have to excuse my tone. I hope it's not too monotonous. Sometimes I'm really excited when I do the narrations, but today's a bit of a slow day for me. But everything's good. It's just going through some motions, and it's gonna get better with time. So yeah. a lot of things to be excited about, actually. A lot of things towards in the direction of 2018 that I'm really happy about, and that I can't wait to work on. I have so many plans, and I'm gonna sit down with a friend in about a week, and we are both gonna help each other sort out our 2018 plans. I think every time we do this, we did it last year too, so we set it up for a time where we'll have maybe 2 or 3 hours, and it's not enough for anything. So we learned the lesson, and this time we'll probably meet so early we'll have like 6 or 7 hours to sit down, because it's such a long process and it's both of us. So we're gonna sit down literally for like 6 to 8 hours and just talk about the things we both plan on doing, and breaking them down into more well-organized tasks, and just getting things done, basically. I feel like this entire year was such a momentum. I'm also a bit tired, so sorry about that. I feel like I just trying to keep it real for you. So I feel like this year was such a momentum year. I guess I built such a strong momentum in work, and I really want to preserve it and increase it next year. So I'm really thinking about that quite often. And sometimes it's really clear, like the way, I call it the bridge. It's like there's a bridge taking you from where you are and into where you want to be. And I know this is a bit woo and a bit abstract, but bear with me. So there's this bridge that takes you to where you want to be. And the bridge can come in many shapes. So for example, different tasks and habits and things that you want to implement. And this is literally the bridge that will carry you to the other side. And sometimes it's a bit more abstract. It's unclear what the bridge is made of and how to get there. And so some days I feel like the bridge is really clear to me. I know exactly what I'll have to do. By the way, this is one of my favorite parts, the way the feet turned out here. Just the highlights and everything. So anyway, sometimes the bridge feels so obvious and clear, and like the next steps are so certain, but then some other days there's just a lack of clarity, especially in doing something like I do, which is just, I don't want to say never been done before, because there are a lot of creators who do something similar to what I do. Just look at the other channels of painting and sketching and drawing and illustration and design and video editing and all sorts of things. But the way I do it and the way each and every creator does it is unique. And the angle from which we quote unquote attack it is unique for each one. So my angle is, I think, also very unique. I'm kind of trying to combine several worlds, I guess. I want to be able to make a lot of people, young people, I guess, to really look at watercolor as a medium that's more than worthwhile. Meaning, it has a rep of a lot of people that are a little older take up watercolor painting, which is totally fine. It's actually a lot of my audience, I guess, here. But I do want to light a spark with younger people, I guess, especially because watercolor is considered in many ways, I guess, inferior to other traditional media like oils. So I want to bring that prestige and swag. It's funny to use these two words in one sentence, but anyway, these feelings, I want to bring them to watercolor painting. And I'm going to do this by use of my personality or by use of whatever it is. And it's a challenge. And I plan on becoming really successful. And I think I have to recognize the fact that I'm already quite successful. And I like that I am, but it doesn't necessarily show as much. I like to be in that situation. Because it just means that when things are going to get crazier, it's going to be really, really interesting. So, yeah. By the way, I just worked on the neck of the guitar, and this is the part I told you I'm less pleased with. I don't know, maybe I was just a bit lazy there. I hope not, but it could definitely be the explanation for that. So sometimes I have to really pull myself together and focus. Usually when I create work for other people, and I talked about this I think in a really older video, maybe that I shot in Paris. When I make work for other people, it's just different. It's just I feel so much more immersed in the process, and the importance rises because basically you make it for someone else and someone else is going to enjoy it and you want to please them, so especially if they pay you. So yeah, a lot of things, this was like a gift, so I also was quite immersed. I don't know if I was necessarily lazy over there, but I was quite immersed in the process because I knew I'm going to gift it, and it just meant a lot to me. In any case, now we're moving on to the next stages. So second wash, some darker darks, the mics, the things that I want to pop. And this means that now we're looking at it at double speed. So if things were a little too slow for you, now it's a good time to maybe enjoy it more in a more speedy manner. I always have this, I guess, discussion in my mind of whether I want to do sorry about that, whether I want to do more of the longer format or more of the shorter format, because I know the division on that is quite 50-50. I did a poll here on the channel, and most of the replies were like very equally distributed between the longer vids and shorter vids, and so I'm just trying to do both. There was a time when I used to do daily videos. I used to really do sometimes, by the way, here's a zoomed in look. So I used to do both, like time-lapse and full processes, just because I wanted to maximize everything I record, because daily is a bit of a challenge. So I think when you do daily, it's okay to do that, but maybe if it's like 3 times a week, or definitely if it's a weekly video, then it's too much to do a time-lapse and a narrated version. In any case, now I'm darkening the hair. I'm using mostly a blue-dominated mixture, because the blue can get quite dark. I'm just wondering what I should do now, so I take my time. Now I think my work became a little more efficient, so I'm using less brush strokes here, just trying to get the minimum that's necessary, so that it doesn't turn into something boring or too not spontaneous, like the opposite of spontaneous. And this green sweater gave me so much trouble. You'll see soon, because it just wouldn't get dark. The more I try, the more I figured out it's not dark enough, and I keep looking at the reference and I'm like, it should be darker. And then I do a glaze that I feel like is really dark, and then it dries, and I'm like, it should still be darker. And it was a bit frustrating, to tell you the truth. Sometimes I think that happens to me with greens mainly. I don't know why. With trees as well. I feel this quite a lot when I'm doing work outside. By the way, that's his chest, and I should have had it a bit red, and I ended up calling it blue, so I'm correcting that now. But in any case, I feel like greens give me that kind of challenge. It's like they're not easy to read sometimes in terms of values, even for the lighter side of the scale. When I look at trees, sometimes they're much lighter than they appear. And sometimes they're much darker. There are highlights there. You can see, especially if you walk down a sunny boulevard, I guess, and then you have, by the way, here's the glaze that was a mistake, I think. So if you're walking in a sunny boulevard and there's a lot of trees there, and the sunlight directly hits some of them, you'll notice how the green turns almost into a yellowy kind of very light color. And it's so hard to figure out how light or dark to do that. And if you add the fact that the texture of trees can be problematic at times, it could be an advantage too, definitely. But it could also be problematic if you're trying to imitate exactly what you see. then it just turns them into a big challenge. And I should probably do like another video. I did like the trees exercise a long time ago, but I think I should do another one more specifically for trees. So now you see I just killed the oranges and the reds in the guitar, when I should have in fact just glazed them with another layer of red and orange. So this is a mistake that I talked about a few times lately with reds. I have it a lot with reds, so I try to darken them, and I'm doing it again here. I'm always very insistent on darkening them using a different color family, so with blues or something else, and or even maybe purples sometimes. And it's okay to add a second layer or glaze of red and yellow. I should really get that into my mind. It's okay to do that. So yeah. Now I'm bringing out some of the the darker areas in the face. This will help better indicate the shape of the nose and the eyes and just where everything fits. The mic there is in a very interesting position. I don't remember what I did with it. It's just in front of the mouth. So I don't remember. There are two mics basically, one for the singing and another one for the guitar. And by the way, he sings beautifully, like really, really good. I was in his live show after about a week ago, and he's really good. So now I'm trying to darken up some of the neck. I'm using blue just because I haven't used it yet in this area. But then again, yeah, the color combination, I'm not happy with it. Yeah, funny enough, the final results turned out really nicely, but still. So now I'm putting in some shadows on the pants, and I'm trying to alternate, you'll see, between blues and reds, okay, just to create some interest. So here I'm changing back to some reds, getting some of the folds and creases, and many times you'll find that these are best put in one go. You don't want to mess with them too much. You want to kind of put them in, especially if it's like a sharp contrast or something like this. You want to be able to just put them in one go and not work too hard on them, because it just adds to the beauty of the whole thing. So yeah, we're about 2/3 down here. The only thing that's left to do is to darken things even more. So now I thought, it's green, let's darken it with red. This turned out to be a mistake. I shouldn't have done that. It did appear for a moment like it works, but what I find that happens a lot of the time is the red just evaporates, like the water evaporates, and it just goes back to being very very light again. So this is something that isn't necessarily the best decision. Now, I do know that it's possible to darken green using red for the most part because they're complementaries, but I find that it works better if you do that while actually mixing and not dry on dry. So yeah, and also not wet and wet. So just when you mix green and red, I find that works better. There was someone screaming outside. I hope it didn't come through. I didn't sleep that well tonight, so I'll probably just go to bed afterwards, even though it's only 4 in the afternoon, which sometimes you gotta sleep. So now I'm adding some more shadows to the hair, letting some of it dry, or mix rather, into the sweater. Some of the eyebrows as well needed some stronger hints, and the eyelids, some of the hair, and the main parts I need to darken now are just to add a layer of shadow to the sweater. Once again, I need to go over all of the mics because one layer wasn't enough, so just to get them to be a lot darker, and mainly the shadow in the sweater and some in the chair he's sitting on. This should be much darker. So now you see I'm having another go at it. This was a bit frustrating, I have to say, because I kept glazing it over and over. I guess sometimes it's just hard to assess how dark the paint's gonna end up being, and that's a lesson for me, not to get too frustrated with what it looks like at the moment. So yeah, later on today I'm gonna visit a friend, so I think I really should sleep before that. I was working on some stuff that were a bit more boring earlier. Recording this actually helps me stay awake, but and I think I almost fell asleep on the desk. It doesn't happen a lot that I'm this tired. It's very rare actually. I almost always sleep really well, but once in a while. So yeah, so now I get the shadows of this sweater I think quite nicely. I'm gonna add probably some darker shadows to the pants. This is another area where it needs a bit darkening. So I feel like the one thing I'm not that pleased with is the nose, actually, in terms of the drawing. Now, I'm sorry about the drop in quality. What happened was the light slowly disappeared. I took a break for the wash to dry, and then the sunset came, and it was just too dark. So I'm now working with light, like, artificial light. So it's not as good. Unfortunately, it's a bit yellow. I'll try to do some color correction, and hopefully when you see it, it's not as yellow, but now when I'm looking at it, it's quite yellow. So the quality isn't that great. In any case, now I'm adding some darker colors to the chair. Looking back at this is one of those processes I should have probably ran at a bit of a faster pace, but you'll forgive me for that, I guess. So yeah, now the darkest darks for the pants. I will show you a better version of the final result, not that yellowy thing that you're looking at right now. I took a better picture when I took it for framing. I actually didn't have a good picture of it, like a really high quality picture of it. I just didn't, and then I gave it. So that's not gonna happen anymore. But yeah, one lesson I did learn is to scan all of my work so that I just have some kind of a copy, because in case I want to use them for something, maybe on a website or something like this. And so I ended up scanning quite a few paintings over the weekend, and I don't have a large enough scanner, so that sucks a bit. I need to sort of stitch them together, scan two parts and then connect them in Photoshop or whatever. It's not a very fun process, I guess, but what can you do? I wonder where you can buy these large scanners, because I did some research and it turns out not a lot of businesses have them too. So if you go to a photocopy store, maybe, it's quite rare to find a scanner that's really large or as large as I need, for sizes like half a sheet, I guess, of watercolor. That's some large surface, and it's hard to find a scanner that does that. So anyway, now moving on to the background, and this is where I'll try to add some contrast or add some interest, I guess. Now that I look at it, the composition is I'm pretty pleased with it, but I think the values, I'm not even sure how I'm gonna do them. I hope I will create some contrast. I think I did create some contrast with the the figure itself in the background. And also, now that I look at it, the upper body looks a little too short, but I'm not sure. It could be just the foreshortening, I guess, just because of his legs are pointing towards us, and it's a unique angle. I actually think I'm gonna go back there to another open mic night and just bring a sketchbook and sketch. Maybe I'll do like value sketches with pencil or pen, and then take a picture as well, of course, and then go back and paint them in the comfort of my own place, so that I can, because I think bringing the whole watercolor set there is a little too much. Now, when I put the curtain on the back and the wall, you can see how the mic and the microphone and the recording gear suddenly looks a little too light. So I think I go over it with a darker layer, not yellow. I forget how to speak. So in any case, and now there's the shadow to the bottom left of Zvika. I indicated it using a pencil. So one other thing that I started doing now is merging more areas together. So the painting I finished yesterday, or rather it was 2 days ago, from the time of recording this narration, I immediately pulled out the shadow from the figure. Okay, so I just literally pulled the color from the figure wet, while it's still wet, and onto the shadow. I think it is important for the shadows to be at the same. And by the way, this is where I'm going to create a really cool contrast with his right leg that's to our left. So in any case, yeah, I think it's really important to catch that. And I think I did a good job with just merging as much as possible with the other work I did. And now that's a bit of a question of how I want to add it. So I just decided to kind of blend it in there with water. And you can see already how it does make his foot pop a little, adding a bit more of a dark green to that area. And the reason why is because the leg is, the feet are orangey yellowish, and I just wanted to create that strong contrast. So this is basically, it's almost done, and this entire painting is dominated by oranges and greens and oranges and some grays. Not necessarily my best color, I guess, composition, but still I think it created quite a bit of interest. And so I think also this is such a matter of taste, and as someone commented on a recent video, these things are, you can't anticipate it. So much of it is just a matter of, do you in particular like this green color or not? If you're not, then you may not like this painting, you know. So yeah, I try not to judge the work for other people, just giving my own humble critique of what I think I could have done a little better or something like this. Now, I finally noticed that the shadow on the hand, the hand that's on the left part, that's on the guitar, isn't strong enough. I really hope I make it stronger, but I don't remember if I do. Also, the cast shadow probably should be a little darker, because the contrasts are what brings this to life, really. I will make a video on that in particular, and right now I'm doing this, I'm adding contrasts. The contrasts are a huge part of what gives something like this a realistic feeling. And I think it's really important to have that in mind when working on virtually any painting that you aspire to have fairly realistic looking. And this brings up a lot of questions and dilemmas, because sometimes you have a scene that doesn't have strong contrast. So what do? Do you force it on the scene? Do you play around with the contrast? Some say that they really change things around as they desire and as they see fit. Here I'm adding finally that stronger shadow. So some people say that they move things around as much as necessary and, you know, have no remorse about that. And I tend to join that camp and to be a part of that camp. And so I think sometimes some scenes aren't really meant for watercolor, and then you have to do some modifications. You have no choice. The ideal is, of course, to find a good scene, and for that it's like strong contrast, strong sunlight, maybe around noon, I guess, is a good time to get these, or, you know, any time where the sun comes up and comes down. Not too late. If you get too late, it makes it a lot harder. I actually shared on Instagram today a painting I did that I started to work on around 4 p.m. And because it's almost winter now, then it kind of is winter. It's a pathetic winter here in Israel, but it is winter nonetheless. So it becomes really dark already. It gets really dark at around 5 p.m. And so it was just really challenging for me. But I did get a nice result, and I think I learned a lot from the experience. So you don't want to diss that too much. So now I'm getting the ceiling here. I think it just was important in terms of framing this up. Trying to let the paper do its thing with the texture, mainly because I don't want this area to take any focus, and by adding some gaps and some spaces, it actually, I find at least, sends it to the background just a little bit. So that's a good thing, and I'm just covering it up all the way to the top. And I also think with all the greens and grays and oranges, the touch of red at the top was the right decision. And there was a bit of a shadow near the corner, so I'm just kind of throwing it in there, wet and wet. Not trying to get it to be too dark. It was a very subtle shadow. And I'm just going to sign this, and this one is done. In a moment, I'll show you a better view of what it looks like in better light conditions. So here it is. I really hope you enjoyed this process. Let's wrap up this video.
So friends, I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, the final result. I'm really pleased with how it turned out eventually after looking at it at a distance, or maybe after detaching emotionally from the time I finished it. One more thing, as I mentioned, this place is just wonderful for drawing live from real life. And so I'll probably go back there, and I have a few other pictures of different nights there that I want to base some paintings off of, so you can expect many fun stuff in that sense. Let me know what you think of full painting demos like this one. I noticed that there's a lot of requests for things that are more like color mixes and all of my yellows and all of my blues and the paint show and things like this. And the painting processes are popular, but maybe less so. And so I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on this. Okay, let me know what your opinion is. Do you enjoy these full painting processes? Do you actually immerse yourself in them? Do you try and paint based off of them if they're maybe simpler, or even if they're complex? I'm really curious to hear your opinion on that and how you consume that content, that type of videos that I produce. Okay, so anyway, this is it. Thanks again for watching. I really hope you learned something new and enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel here. Also check out my podcast. I will put a link in the description box below. I have some new episodes out, and I'm just having a lot of fun doing it. And I think I'm starting to dive deeper into some very interesting topics, and I will be happy for your feedback on it, and if there are topics you want me to cover there. Also, don't forget Snapchat and Instagram if you want to see me working on works in progress, and if you just want to see some paintings and stuff that I don't share on YouTube, because I do much more than you see here. Okay, so there's a lot of things that I don't upload to YouTube, but there you can probably see all of it. Okay, so I really hope you enjoyed this one. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you again in another video really soon.